Okay, 1793. That's a pretty high-rated opponent. Let's see how our opening repertoire fares. And we've been playing the Smith-Morra exclusively. We are going to continue. I think the Smith-Morra becomes more exciting at this level because people tend to accept it and play something a little bit more conventional. The move here is, if I remember correctly, for some reason I'm blanking on whether it's bishop c4, knight f3. It is knight f3. It's just to develop the other knight. And e6. So this is one of many possible systems, but e6 in this position, I guess we could play bishop c4 and transpose after a6 to one of the main lines. Now, generally, in the Smith-Morra, this is kind of an exception to the rule. As far as I understand from my initial analysis, you put the bishop on c4 regardless of whether black plays e6 or not. Now, you might say, well, you know, it bites on granite. Why would we put it there? And you have to see the bigger picture. You have to develop your king side and castle quickly. And often the bishop actually supports a knight sacrifice on d5. In addition, it prevents black from playing d5 easily. So the bishop is doing stuff. Let's castle. Let's develop. a6. Now, our opponent is playing quite inaccurately, I think. Because, you know, I've talked about this many times. The d6 square is very important to pay attention to in this position, right? If we can get control of that square, we make it extremely difficult for black to complete their development. For obvious reasons, right? It makes it hard for black to push d6. So what could be a possible move? So e5 could be a move, but e5 allows d5, and our opponent is able to shove that pawn through. We should play bishop f4, developing a piece and simultaneously controlling the d6 square. Knight e7. Now, a very logical move would be to actually put a bishop on d6 and establish our control over that square. We can do this in several different ways. Now we can actually go e5 and clamp down on this square even further by shifting the knight around to e4, the square formerly occupied by the pawn. I actually like e5 a little bit more. I feel like keeping our dark squared bishop could be valuable just if we're ever to attack on the king side. I feel like having this bishop could be a good idea. So let's go knight e4. Look at the control that we have over that square. If black goes d5, we en passant. Now we need to switch gears a little bit. So we've gotten control over that square. Now we need to keep improving our position somehow. And as part of that, we need to figure out which pieces we can improve and how we can improve them. And I think there are many ways to arrange your pieces here. And it'll take me a second to figure out the one that we want to carry out. I think we should play very straightforwardly here. I think we should just go queen d2, connect the rooks. And, you know, this queen on d2 is very flexible. Knight g6 is not scary. We can go bishop g5 to attack black's queen. But remember, to see the bigger picture, we're trying to control the d6 square. By extension, we're trying to keep this pawn well defended. So we should just calmly drop the bishop back to g3. Now, can somebody propose a potential idea that exploits the knight on g6, which is, in fact, quite misplaced? Yeah, h4, h5 is something to keep an eye on. Now, where should the bishop go? The way that I'm thinking about this is, okay, well, the bishop has kind of done its job on this diagonal. So from that perspective, it would make sense to bring it back to d3. On the other hand, after bishop d3, black has a very nasty move. Bishop b8. And it's gotten hard to defend the e5 pawn. The advantage of playing bishop b3 is that we keep open the connection between the knight and the queen. So we're able to play knight d6 in response to bishop b8. But let me think about this. Bishop d3, bishop b8. We could still go knight d6 in that position, but it's not quite the same. So let's go bishop b3. Let's keep the queen's contact with d6 open. Del Arenda, thank you for the raid. Our opponent playing very quickly. We might have to speed up. Queen b6. I don't like that move at all. It doesn't do anything at all. This queen is misplaced, and it leaves the king wide open. The only thing our opponent might be preparing is knight d4. So let's get the rook into the game and prevent it. And now I think everything is in place, and we can start attacking the king. Okay, so bishop b8. Good thing we played bishop b3. Now, remember something very important. Just because you had planned a move in one position doesn't mean that when the position changes, you don't have any other defensive moves. Here, I think we have a fantastic defensive move, defensive and attacking at the same time. It defends the pawn and it assembles a piece on the king side. What am I thinking of? Knight f6 check should be considered as well, but you know, we'll leave that for a different time. Queen g5, and if black goes h6, which is very likely because our opponent is playing quickly and superficially, we shift the queen over to h5, where it's nicely tucked away, defending e5. I think we're in fantastic shape. And now h4, h5 is an idea that you should be already thinking of. Knight f6 check has now become far more of a reality now that we actually have pieces on the king side. Ogork, thank you for the prime. Hopefully I'm explaining everything in relatively understandable terms. Knight d6 is still possible in these types of positions. We've got options. We've got many, many options here for how to conduct the initiative. We could even play queen h5 on our own volition in order to make room for the knight to jump into g5. Okay, our opponent made us do it. Black is in big trouble. I'm not sure it's totally lost, but it certainly looks that way. Now, to me, once h6 is played, this greatly accentuates, increases, I should say, the strength of knight f6 check. Why is that? Because after g takes f6, the pawn on h6 is capturable, and it becomes an entry point to black's king. So we can even play queen takes h6 immediately. But we should probably prepare knight f6. We have time to do it. Black is so cramped that we have time to prepare knight f6. So we need to put a piece on a certain square, such that after knight f6, g takes f6, e takes f6, we have a piece that's nicely positioned for the attack. Now, the way that most people interpret that question is, okay, well, we need to play bishop h4. We need to increase our control over the f6 square. That's not what we have to do. We don't need to control the f6 square any more than we already are. We will be able to play knight f6. The great attacking move here is bishop drops back to c2 in order, after knight f6, to be able to capture that knight on g6 when we want to. Does that make sense? Queen b8. Well, let's calculate. Knight f6 gf. We're just going to play it. I don't want to calculate. This is so overwhelming. This is so overwhelming. This has to be winning. Has to be. Yeah, this is a nice move. It's nothing insane, but it's a very nice attacking move. And now we reap the benefits of that attacking move by playing what? And this is going to end the game immediately. What do? Yeah, we take the knight. We simply take the knight. FG, queen takes g6. We threaten mate on h7. Because we threaten mate on h7, we force black to take the knight. And after e takes f6, there are insurmountable, unstoppable mate threats everywhere. Obviously, look at black's pieces. I mean, our opponent just didn't do a good job of ever untangling. And why is that? Guess what? He never pushed his d pawn. That's because we were controlling it basically from the start of the game. Now, if you really want to be clinical in a position like this, if you really want to attack like the greats, what should you do before playing e takes f6? This is a no-brainer. This is something that mathematically for sure cannot hurt. It can only help. Take the pawn, come back to g6, and then play e takes f6, and you're not just trolling. Guess what? After we do this, knight g5 has become a possibility. So after our opponent takes the pawn of the rook, which is forced, we play queen takes f6, and then knight g5 becomes, okay, well, he makes it easy for us. But knight g5 would have been possible. So let's check the theory. So knight c6, knight f3, e6. Yeah, bishop c4 is the main move. Bishop c5, castles is the main move, a6. So there are still 15 games in the position in the database. We'll take a look. So bishop f4 should make sense to everybody. Knight g7, e5, one game in the database, which is played between... In that game, knight g6 happened. 23-25 against a 22-28. So pretty decent players had this position. So castles, knight e4, bishop a7, and now we play queen d2. Now moves like queen d2 are, I think, very, how should I put this? Let me think about this. oftentimes you look at a position like this and you say, well, you got to do something. And you were proposing knight fg5 here. I'm sure it was probably good. I'm sure it was probably good because you want to go queen h5 and knight f6 and just destroy black. Yeah, maybe this was winning faster. Queen h5, h6. And now, where's the win though? Because knight f6 check takes, and black is able to take the knight in time. So it's not that simple, pot pie, dude. I think you're oversimplifying this. This is never as easy as it looks. But probably if we check with an engine, knight fg5 is winning. Bishop takes g5 there. So you want to sack this and get this bishop to f6. Yeah, but the problem is, remember, you've sacked already 2 pieces for the queen. So what black can do is say, all right, I'm going to take the bishop on g5 and then take the pawn. I'm going to have 3 pieces for the queen. And white doesn't have as much of an attack now because there's no more pieces in the attack. Does that make sense? So anytime you've sacked a lot of pieces, you must remember that your opponent can sacrifice even a queen for a lot of the material. Knight c7 also interesting. Bishop f6, knight f5. If black has these 2 squares covered and is counterattacking white's queen, I'm not convinced that this is winning for white either. It's just unnecessary in my opinion. Because we've got such control over the position, we can afford to play general improving moves. Queen d2, knight g6 back. b5 now an important move. Bishop b3, bishop d3. There was bishop b8. And this pawn is very hard to defend. And if black takes this pawn, then our entire position collapses. We must keep this pawn alive in order to keep our domination on the center. Why did we not consider bishop e2 here? Bishop e2 also was reasonable. I don't know. I honestly don't know why we didn't play bishop e2. This was also a very reasonable move. Yeah, it was an alternative. I guess I was just, I don't know, kind of fixated on keeping the bishop on this diagonal to prove a point. And later on, we dropped the bishop back to c2, which was also important. Queen b6 is really bad. I think this is the decisive mistake. Probably our opponent had to go, at the very least, complete his development. Maybe knight a5 was a better try. At least trying to harass white. But rook a d1, bishop b8, and now boom, queen g5. Defending e5, and this is the beginning of the end, yes. This is the beginning of the end. And the game-winning move is bishop c2. You know, these kinds of moves, they come with a lot of experience. When you are an experienced attacker, these moves come automatically. Because you understand how this works. You're like, well, I know that I have to improve the effect of knight f6 check, and one of the things that knight f6 does is opens up this diagonal. So you know that if you had a bishop there, you'd be able to take black's knight. This is the game-winning move, bishop c2, not knight f6. Knight f6 is the easy move. Everybody should see it. Bishop c2 is the patient preparatory move. Prepare fast, attack. Sorry, prepare slowly, attack fast. This is a great example of that rule. Once the attack begins, we're not wasting any time. Boom, 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 boom. Everything is forced. But what allows us to make that happen are these slow attacking moves. So that's what I'll say in conclusion in this game. A pretty simple game. I can analyze it more, but I'm pretty wiped. It's late. I'm going to go to sleep, guys. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Hope you had a good time.